Morning.
Hey, I a leading solicitor, and I'm got my pen at the ready, Maureen.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Maureen Ogbu, Maureen Anderson Solicitors. Today, I'm just going to be touching on very briefly on the three top mistakes for startups to avoid,
Well, the
essentially.
stage, Maureen, the stage is yours. We're gonna leave you unless you'd like us to stick around and ask you questions. You got your presentation all ready. We're gonna give you the stage.
Okay, no problem. I'm just going to be speaking very briefly, so if anybody has any questions, yeah, they
Okay.
can ask.
Well, gentlemen, let's switch off our cameras. Maureen will jump in about 15, 20 minutes and then hand you over to the next speaker. And
Okay, no
I have to
problem.
let me thank the last speakers. So good, so brilliant. Maureen, let me thank you now as well. Like, I know how busy you are to give up your time to
Thank
speak
you.
with us today.
No problem.
All
No
right.
problem.
I'm going to
Thanks,
shut my
Maureen. Thanks,
camera.
mate, for the opportunity.
Oh, pleasure. You were great. It's all yours.
Okay, so today I'm just going to be talking very briefly about the three top legal mistakes to avoid if you're a startup. So the first thing is actually make sure that you have a commercial agreement in place to conduct your business. Unfortunately, a lot of startups are especially vulnerable to legal matters relating to different areas, such as protecting their intellectual property, getting the right terms and conditions, and various forms of employment contracts. So the employment contract obviously has to be in writing, if possible, setting out what the terms and conditions are, adding the relevant clauses in to make sure that your business is protected, setting out who's responsible for what, because what we found is unfortunately people leave that bit of their business out, hoping that well they're very hopeful that nothing will go wrong. Unfortunately, life being life, that's just life. Something will happen at some point. So it's better to have something written down, setting out who's responsible for what they're responsible for, and also what actions to take should something go wrong, and also if the contract for some bizarre reason in the future appears not to be workable, what can be done to rectify it or terminate the contract. So those are very key things that people should bear in mind when they first start a business, certainly the first couple of years. The other thing also to bear in mind is depending on your sector, the type of business you're in, there are obviously business regulations to bear in mind, whether you're in the construction industry. Obviously, health and safety regulations would apply to you. Food industry, if you're in the food industry, food safety regulations as well as health and safety. Trading laws, again, bear in mind of what you need to abide by. So those things really are important. And then the other thing I was going to also mention is intellectual property. So unfortunately, people don't really think about this. I mean, there are businesses that have even gone on for longer than 2 years and they haven't really thought about this, unfortunately, until something has gone wrong. That's when we see them. So protect your intellectual property, probably one of the first things that actually a startup should think about. However, if a patent has not yet been obtained, then it's probably best to not to disclose the information about your invention, depending on the sector that you're in, and therefore keeping your intellectual property as a trade secret. So anything that's open information is fair game, effectively, for public to use. So if you're in a partnership, then both of you would have to agree and be bound by a non-disclosure agreement, so that neither of you will disclose your intellectual property. So when I say intellectual property, that covers things like copyrights, trademarks, etc., etc. So those things, of course, would cost money if somebody was to get their hands on and start copying your intellectual property. and obviously that needs to be registered. So these are the things that people think, I'll get to them later. Unfortunately, when they eventually get to them, they're probably 5, 6 years into their business, and they're not adequately protected. They're in fact open for people to use their intellectual property, and then they get into the realms of litigation and how to go about. It's effectively damage control, how to go about limiting the damage that's being caused. And then the third thing to be aware of, if you're a startup that's possibly looking to take on staff, maybe in 6 months, a year, 18 months, 2 years, however long it may be, is to bear in mind that you need a properly drafted employment contract in place. Obviously, we know what's going on with the global pandemic at the moment. The larger companies possibly downsizing, putting people on furlough, making people redundant, etc., etc. If you're somebody that's just starting out, maybe a year, 18 months, 2 months down the line, think of having an employment contract that's properly drafted and also up to date with the law of the day, as it were. So there's been quite a few changes that came in 6th of April 2020, which is last year. So bear in mind of those things to make sure that your contract is actually as it should be and is up to date. So I should also go back to the commercial agreement that I referred to. Bear in mind that obviously the pandemic has happened, but we're still in it at the moment. And the second thing is obviously Brexit has happened, we know that. You should also bear in mind what the impact of Brexit will be on your business and try and make provisions for those. So if you already have a commercial contract in place, then you should be looking at possibly having that reviewed and making sure that it's actually up to date. And I would always suggest to people, if you're unsure, seek legal advice. Don't try and do it yourself, because yes, these things do cost money, but in the long run, you'll be paying a lot less to get things right the first time than when they've gone wrong and you're effectively firefighting, and you could then find yourself in the realms of litigation, which obviously everybody knows costs a lot of money. So for the sake of a few £100, possibly, in the average fee, depending on the size of your business, is really conservative when you think of the consequences of disputes when things get contentious. So really, those are the top 3 things that I thought to bring to people's attention. Of course, there are many. There are, in fact, a lot more than 3, but it's really not to take up too much time going into depth in regards to all of them. But these are the things that I thought when I was invited to speak today to actually point out. So 1, just to recap, is the commercial contract. Second, the intellectual property, make sure that's protected. And thirdly, employment contracts, having the right employment contract, the right staff handbook, all those things that people don't really think about. They're just wading in to just deal with their business. Those things are definitely things to kind of bear in mind, and of course there are many more. It's always useful to also have a lawyer, whether it's myself or anybody that Gary would recommend, or anybody that you know that does commercial work, to have them in the background so that if you do need to ask questions, ask them the question.
Well, Maureen,
if you're being charged a fee, it's for a very good reason, because chances are the person will have to look at your business in its entirety to be able to advise you.
Maureen, one of the best bits of advice that I got is from a very wise gentleman, and he's called Mr. Abraham, still remember his name, and he said to me, Mr. Gary, if you want to be a success in business, you need one of 2 things. I said, okay. He said, the first thing will be easy to get, but will take you a lifetime. And the second thing will be difficult to get, but you can get it quite quickly. So I'm intrigued at this piece of knowledge. So he says, all right, the first thing is, it sounds easy, but it will take you a lifetime. And that's to have a good solicitor on your mobile phone. Good solicitor, good accountant, great banker. And that really did take me a lifetime to achieve. Like, I know that I can call Maureen, and Maureen simplifies things for me. She really makes it easy. And that's a really, I don't feel intimidated by her intelligence, or that she's going to make me feel silly with questions. This is one of the best things about my testimonial to you, Maureen. Now, I think it's very important that you get a partnership agreement when you're first, if you're gonna go into partnership with people and there's no money involved, you're the best of friends. Wait till money gets involved. These are the things Maureen can help you with. When you scale up and you've got staff, it's really important that you give Maureen a call and say, look, I've just got staff for the first time. Can you help me with their contracts? Make sure that they don't do this stuff off the internet. Maureen, can you give us some advice? You've probably seen many tears being shed into lots of people's beer. Can you tell us some of the stories that you've heard that could have easily been avoided in business?
Okay. We're working on a few things at the moment. One is a company that employs 15 people. Unfortunately, in fact, the gentleman that started the business, when he first started, he had actually printed off an employment kind of template from the internet, one of these templates that's sold online for £40-50. It didn't cost him very much, and he's been using that. So when I met him, pre-lockdown, actually, we met in our office in central London, and he explained what's been going on. He'd had a few issues with a couple of employees, and so I said, do you have an employment contract? That's usually the first thing I ask. He said, yes, we do. So he sent that to me when he went back to the office, and I had a look, and I said, this is so out of date. In fact, it's 13 years out of date. And there was no other document, didn't have any health and safety policy in place as such. And so I had to then say to him, right, we need to get everything up to date. It took him until the first lockdown happened before we spoke over Zoom, just like we're talking now, because he had actually employed somebody during the first lockdown that then tried to copy what he's done in his business. So this is a danger really of, when you don't have the right documents in place, he said, I'm going to sue this employer. I said, well, actually, if you have the right documents in place, yes, we have something to fight with. So I said, the first port of call is updating that employment contract from nearly a year ago when you came to the office to see me. So we've done that now. We've got the right policies in place. We've added a few clauses in the employment contract to protect his business, to make sure it's watertight.
Now, what we've done, Maureen, we've tried to be super kind to all the startups. Whether you're live in the audience now, or you're watching this on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, wherever it happens to be, or the catch up, we've said that there will be a limited period of time that you'll do some kind of special offer. Now, solicitors, barristers, they don't really do offers. I'm intrigued. What have you got for us, Maureen? How are you gonna help the startups?
Okay, well, how I'm gonna help the startups. I'm willing to offer 20 minutes of my time for people to call up to just explain what their business is, and if there are any tips that I can offer them, I can. Free 20 minutes, wow. complimentary consultation.
Wow. Do you want to tell us your number, Maureen?
Okay, they can get hold of me on 0207, sorry, bear with me, our office number, because I don't ring it very often. I haven't got it in my head. Bear with me.
This is the Maureen I love. She's a real, authentic human being. I love her.
Do you know how many people that I work with who said, what's your telephone number? And that's exactly what they say. I don't phone it, so I don't know it.
could clearly tell, I'm just about to drop the tips. Not really about marketing myself. I don't do that very well.
I just thought, Nick, how complex would it be to have 2 landlines or 3 landlines all going into the same place to make you look bigger than what you are?
Yeah, listen, absolutely. You can have as many numbers as you want ringing on the same mobile phone. Alternatively, there's a service we can give that says, hello and welcome to Maureen's Law. Press 1 for finance law, press 2 for construction, press 3 for contractual. So there's a whole range of things we can do to give the impression of a nice big business to create the credibility that a company wants. Sorry, Maureen.
That sounds good. That sounds good.
It sounds good to me too.
Okay, the number, it's Ring Anderson Solicitors. That's what they're ringing. And it's 0207 859 4451. I'll just repeat that, 0207 859 4451. So when they do call, they can say they've come through the speakers event held by Gary Kasulu.
Well, Cleartone. I'm just the little cog in the wheel. This is Nick's event, Cleartone. Yeah, I'm just a little cog.
If they say that, they can leave their name, number, and email address, and I'll get back to them.
Maureen, I've got a question for you. Very topical at the moment. With regard to COVID, writing into a contract that are you allowed to write into a contract that an employee is required to take any vaccinations that are available to them? Can you, in essence, say that you're not allowed to be employed if you choose not to take a vaccine? Obviously, I know that you can't force someone who's currently employed to take a vaccine, but for new employees, if they bring someone on new, are you able to stipulate in the contract that in order to be able to work from the offices and work effectively, you're required to keep up to date with whatever vaccinations are available?
No, I mean, that's obviously, it's almost going against somebody's human rights, isn't it, really? Because it has not been made mandatory. There's no requirement, really, for somebody to have it. It has to be each of our personal choice. It has to be a personal choice. I mean, what I think would be helpful is really to say to people, it's the onus more is on the employer to make the environment COVID secure, so that employee, for whatever reason, if they decide not to take the vaccine, of course, you could say it's a choice they have. However, it would be advisable to have it. It would not be a requirement. Those two words are distinct. You have to make it very distinct. In order to protect your colleagues and customers, you can say that sort of thing. It would be advisable to have it, but of course the choice is yours. You have to specify that so people know that, because otherwise it can be construed as discriminatory. It's almost discrimination, isn't it? Just like we have sexual discrimination, racial discrimination, all these discrimination things. It could be construed as that. So yeah, I would advise not to have it as a requirement in your in your employment contract.
It's so easy to get
over. It's come up quite a lot. Questions have come up for certainly in some of the businesses that we work with. So I just thought I'd put that question out there and ask.
I think that the law is still evolving, just pretty much like the vaccine, any side effects or anything. Like everything is in it. It's so fluid at the moment. So we'll just wait and see if there are any changes in employment law in April.
All the speakers, I'm asking them because I'm a serious studier of life. I love people. I love studying business. I like studying. Can you share what have you learned over COVID? What have been your lessons that you've learned, good and bad?
Gosh, my lessons. Wow, there's been so many. I'm quite an introspective person. I reflect a lot on things live and what I could have done better, what I shouldn't have done, or what I could do better going forward. I think what this has really taught me, in a way, the pandemic, yes, it's terrible that it's happened, but what it has opened up is opened up all of us to see that we're more alike than we are different. So people, I notice, are kinder to each other, which should always be the case anyway. My philosophy in life is leave people feeling better than you found them. So that's That's been my thing. And also, I found that, as you say, when you say lawyers are busy and things like this, yes, we are busy, but we're also human beings. So I found that people are, in fact, on a few WhatsApp groups that I'm a member of, I found that people generally would WhatsApp you when they wouldn't normally. So inquiries generally come through that way nowadays, and then you have to kind of redirect them to the office to book an appointment and things like this. We've become more, uh, even though we're all seeing each other virtually and communicating virtually, people are more accessible than they used to be if you had a meeting and you're meeting them in the office.
Well, yeah, see, the frustration of some of us that are a little bit older is that when you wrote to a solicitor, you'd write to them only, and then you'd get your letter back a week, 2 weeks later. Now people expect you to just jump at the slightest WhatsApp. You got to react to it. So there's positives and negatives to that. So anything else, Maureen, before we lose you? I could listen to you all day, because what you're giving might not affect you today, but somewhere down the line, if you don't do things properly, it will affect you. So I really do, all you startups, to listen to what Maureen said today.
Yeah, I think the last minute for businesses or in life generally.
Whatever you like, Maureen. It's all knowledge.
Okay, okay. Well, in business, I would definitely say yes. You think, gosh, I don't need a lawyer, because in fact, we're always the last people that people think they need, because nothing has happened. It's right at the beginning. Accountants, people think if they have a limited company, they definitely need an accountant. Even if they're a sole proprietor, they still need an accountant, unless they're going to be doing their self-assessments, themselves. But solicitors are the last people that people think about when they first start in business. But actually, they should be one of the first people that they speak to. For instance, we're dealing with a case where a shareholders agreement has gone wrong. It wasn't entirely clear how the business was structured when the business was actually started. Now we're having to look into the memorandum of articles and things like this, checking in Companies House to see how everything was actually put together, how many shares, who has what, etc., etc. So yeah, people think, well, if it goes wrong, I can walk away. But walking away also has its own challenges, because you have to do it properly. Otherwise, you could end up being responsible for something when you've actually left the business. As simple as selling your shares in the business could also be, setting it out at the beginning properly helps to mitigate issues coming up in the future. I mean, we're dealing with a lot of people that, for what's obviously with the pandemic happening, they want to either sell the business, want to get out of the business, or sell their shares to the other partner in the business. So those sorts of issues, people definitely need to be aware of at the beginning and make sure that things are put in place.
One of our jobs today that we need to take on is inspire some of the startups to be the next Richard Branson or the next Mothercare, wherever it happens to be. Not Mothercare. I was going to say Body Shop, not Mothercare. So they lost their way. Maureen, what were some of the challenges when you set up your business? Because on the outside, like Instagram, everything looks pretty, but there were moments, I'm sure, in all of our. What were? Can you remember some of the challenges that you had, and you had to be resilient?
Gosh, some of the challenges, definitely. Well, I had a business plan, so because I didn't really know what I was actually doing. Yes, I'm a lawyer, but in terms of, being able to forecast and project, I had to get somebody professional to come on board to help me with my business plan, properly drafted for the first 3 years. And then, of course, having the right contracts in place, because in my mind, I had a vision that I wanted to take on other legal colleagues to join me in the practice. So I had to think about getting the correct type of contracts and, of course, putting in the right clauses to make sure that the business is protected. Obviously, in the profession, I have to also bear in mind that they have to be people that have practicing certificates. So in other words, they can actually practice as lawyers. They're competent they have no criminal convictions, those sorts of things. One of the challenges that I had was not having a mentor sooner. So somebody in the profession that's a bit further down, they've done it. So even myself now, I'm still learning after 20.
Maureen, did you have anyone in your family that had started the business? Because that's very, very helpful. I wonder, Nick, I'm sure, I would guess that you've had relatives that have been in business before.
No, a lot of them are professionals actually, just different industries. My dad had a business, but it wasn't. In the end, he moved it to West Africa, so it wasn't here. I think I'm really the first person, and certainly the first lawyer in my family. Everybody's in different profession really in my family.
Nick, is that the case for you, Nick? Did you have family, grandparents, parents in business?
Yeah, my dad was in business. He started off his own business, and then as his sort of career and customer base grew, he sort of merged with other companies to, increase and growth. So yeah, absolutely. I grew up with my dad being in business from the beginning.
So there you go. You got a mixed bag. Nobody in my family had a business. I had to learn from the library. Like, truly, I didn't have any mentors. It really speeds you up. So there's going to be somebody in your triangle who has a business, and just go and ask. Like most entrepreneurs will open the door to a young startup and say, look, come on in and we'll have a coffee. And I'm pretty sure that most will say yes. And if you think that rejection, you need to start getting used to it, because running a business, rejection, it comes thick and fast.
Get used to rejection, absolutely. I had so many. I was always following senior lawyers around, even other business people, other people, asking them questions. And usually people say, I haven't got the time. If that's the industry that you really want to get into and build yourself up in business, don't give up. Research it, and then just reach out to people. Yes, you may get people that will say, I haven't got the time, another time. Just keep trying.
You know what else is quite unusual is when I hear businesses that's just starting up and they approach people that have already made it, and how willing those people are to share some of their knowledge. Don't be afraid. Whatever you do, go to the industry leader and say, can I have 20 minutes with you? You might be quite surprised at the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was looking into starting a business a few years ago, and I literally connected with people on LinkedIn and said, do you have a few minutes to help an industrious entrepreneur?
Oh.
And that struck a chord with them, and the amount of useful knowledge I got, and people say 20 minutes, but it ends up being an hour, because they're enjoying giving them their knowledge, they're enjoying helping someone get their foot up as well. They know that they would have needed at the beginning of their career, and people generally are happy to help. I even call myself, I think, an industrious entrepreneur, as a stranger, but people are still very happy to help.
Yeah, Nick, you're absolutely right. The 20 minutes, I kind of said that, but actually I found myself in the last 3 weeks or so, I've ended up talking to somebody for 45 minutes. I was enjoying how energetic and enthusiastic they are about what they're doing. They're passionate about it. Of course, it's still legal advice, obviously, that I'm giving, but just hearing them, and then I found myself sharing about my own experiences when I was younger, at that age, and honestly, you've got to really give it up to these young people. Really. I mean, I know in my 20s, I certainly was not thinking about having a business. It was about just moving on to the next stage in my career, not really thinking about business in any shape or form. So it's very admirable, and I find it inspiring to hear younger people. They have all these ideas and what they really want to do with them. So no, I'm definitely open to that. As I said, Gary, 20 minutes, and if it turns out to be a little bit longer, if it's something that's a little bit more complex,
you're so lovely.
Would need more time to sort out.
It's not. I'm not just selling, Nick. People's first impressions is important. It would be quite impressive, Nick. Do you mind if I put you on the spot and ask how much does that cost to have that switchboard system go there for press 1 for this and press 2 for that? How much does that cost?
Generally,
It's put you on the
let's say
spot a little bit.
£199 is generally where we start at for that, but it depends on a few.
Is that a one-off cost? That's it, done.
Correct.
Wow,
And after that, there's sometimes a monthly cost for the number, depending on what number you're using, where it's going to. But to have the switchboard professionally recorded, all set up for you, to have your individual voicemails, to have all the calls recorded, which Maureen, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on recording a telephone conversation. But all calls that come into a Cleartone number are recorded, and you can go in later and download it. So if you're driving,
wow, included in that 199. Ah, come on, that's good. Can I ask another question? One of the reasons I love Virgin Atlantic and Richard Branson is he's quirky. I often get on trains going up north, and get in a Virgin train. You go inside, and the little voice says, "Hi, I'm the toilet." Have you been on a Virgin train, either of you? And it speaks to you, and that just is it's so authentic. So, would your voiceover person do a different accent for different lines and go out of the norm? Would that be a possibility?
So the voiceover artist will take instructions. So if you want it to be extra posh, or you want it to be, depending on if they can do the accents, or if you want it to be a bit slower, however you want it designed, that's all included. So
I love it. I love it. Oh, I love that. So Sarah's about to come on, and one of my favourite bits is when we connect two people that would never have met in real life. So Sarah, just need to unmute yourself, undo your camera, and here she is.